Yes, this is Captain Eon speaking, and I would like to welcome you all to this leg of my journey. Thank you for taking the time to share in God's flight plan for me, as I hope the same for you. The destination of this flight is the throne of God in heaven. So I'm going to turn off the intercom and open up the captain's mic and give you a little bit of insight into my protocol, my means of getting there. Thank you. Please stand by. So, every day I'm realizing, and it really hit me again. And since I tend to be, pretty tough, I don't have to. And I don't know if it's a toughness thing. Maybe it's just the way I learn. Because tough is not good in the kingdom of heaven, I realize. Because tough is just one stage away from hardness. But let's go with my learning pattern. I don't always get it, or it doesn't always sink in right away, deep enough. And I'm glad for that, because I don't want His word just to be sitting on the surface, or to just, roll off like water on a duck's back. I want it to really get in deep in the soil of my existence, down to that rich mud where it can grow and catch deep root. But again, I've realized that every day another line builds upon the line. It's like in the beginning of this season, or this year-long flight, to stick with the theme, God already laid out everything. The flight plan, I already know the destination. Now it's the getting there. Or now comes the fun. Now this is the fun part. But these precepts, so ultimately every day is just building upon and solidifying and fully forming the ideas that were originally given as seeds. So if I'm being repetitive on certain themes and things, then that makes sense. And it's for a reason, because I can't continue to build by taking away what was first laid down. And so in that same light, or, in this vein of thought, the idea, and I actually remember speaking on it yesterday, about darkness and what it is really being nothing a void. This idea is being carried over today or being built upon today, when in chapter 24, verse 7, Joshua was reminding the children of Israel that God put darkness between them and the Egyptians. And so when I heard this, and it stuck with me, like almost from the first time going over today's flight plan, that part stuck. And so in building upon it, I took it a step further, using the original idea that I had before, and just instead of saying darkness between, I translated it or inserted the phrase no thing. Because I like words and things, and so, well, it's not about the things I like, the things I like. You know how it is with me and words. And so I took that word nothing and kind of gave it more meaning for me, as nothing really is no thing. And that's what darkness is, at least in my understanding. It is not a thing. And so applying this idea to my life now, I started remembering where God speaks of there being a void or a chasm between heaven and hell. When the rich man could see heaven and wanted some relief, he was told the truth that it's impossible, it cannot happen, because of the space between the two. It's uncrossable. And that's what came to remembrance with this idea, no thing. It was interesting to me that in thinking about that part where hell could see heaven, God doesn't speak about it, but I believe, and I've had this belief for a while, that really heaven can't see hell. And let me clarify. It's not that God can't see, or maybe even the angels, but I believe that the saints, that we won't be able in paradise to see hell. And I believe this because since there's going to be no crying and no weeping and no tears and no negative emotions, then I just equated it to being not able to see the place of torment. Because I can only imagine being in paradise and seeing someone you knew, or seeing someone that's close to you, or even just seeing anybody being tormented would probably cause great distress. And going back to this idea of no thing between, the darkness, the void, when there is a void of light, yes, in darkness, even the smallest illumination can be seen. So along that same theme, yes, light, or the darkness can see the light. A lot of times I think that the light doesn't see, because if you turn on a light in a well-lit room, it really doesn't do anything. But that was one part of it, the no thing between, when I thought about when God was talking about, that void between heaven and hell. And then, I wanted to take it a step further, and how within the body, there should be no thing between each of the members. In my limited knowledge about the human body and just the awesomeness of God, his fingerprint on everything, I realize, or come to understand, that everything is connected. From the musculature that there. See, I wanted to prove I was educated, so I want to use some college words. But from the muscles, how all the muscles, if one muscle is tight, it pulls on another one. There's this thing, matrix. That's, I think, what all the cells are in, the liquid. But the bones and everything is connected. I forget what actual practice of medicine, but the idea, if I'm recalling correctly, is that sometimes we can feel pain in one part of our body, but that's not really where the problem is. It's being projected, and since everything's connected, it's kind of showing itself somewhere else. But again, as a body, nothing should be between, because ultimately God put the darkness between his people and the opposition. Right as I was finishing that sentence, the thought popped in my head about, in the beginning, and going back line upon line, he already gave this concept to prove the point about line upon line, when he says he separated the light from the dark. So there's no thing between. And that's why ultimately I'm grateful to be on this journey, to be able to continue to get to him, because ultimately I don't want there to be nothing, no thing at all between my Lord and I. And I can only imagine when that day comes that I get to make my final approach, whether it's on my own or whether it's all of his flights, all of us touching down in glory land together. That is the culmination, the epitome of no thing between the Lord and I and us, because certainly there will be no darkness. And I thought about this. It's not, while I was out in the sun today, it's going to be brighter than the sun, but there's not going to be the oppressive heat. It will just be the brightness. And what I come to understand from a brother that I mentioned a couple days before, of his presence. But going back, there will be no thing between us, and there will not even be this existence, this realm to separate us, because now I can sit at his feet. I can lay my head on his chest like our brother John did. I can be against him, with no thing in between. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to just check out my logbook. And as you all make your ways back to your crafts and continue on your journeys, please always remember, if not already done so, to place your hearts and minds in his upright position. Caption this. Sir.